Hi everyone, welcome to Mel's Carving Club. We are going to be making a fish photo holder DIY, and we have basswood and cherry wood as the two types of wood we're going to be using for our project. This was such a fun project to make, and the first tool that we're going to be using to make our shape of our fish is the whittling knife, and this is a Mikiki-chan whittling knife. And then we also have our V tool, which is what's going to help us with all the detail to make our fish. And then lastly, I have a little brush just to get off any excess. And if you do have our carving knife, the Japanese one, that is totally fine to use. So the first thing we're going to be doing is the push cut, and I drew out a 1/4 inch all around the fish on the side that has the eyes on it. So to do the push cut, you're going to be holding your knife in your dominant hand and you're going to push with your non-dominant thumb. This is going to help take out little slivers of wood so we have more control to be able to make the shape of our fish. Make sure to be following the grain of your fish, and if you have any resistance, flip it over and just carve towards the other side, and that should generally clean it up so that you'd be able to have a smooth carving. Make sure to do both fish, and we're only carving the side that have the eyes in it. The other side we need to make sure remains flat. I want to create a slight slope between the body and the tail of the fish, so when you're doing this, make sure to use the very tip of your knife for U-shape, and we're also going to be using the feathering technique. When we are working on the fishtail itself, we're actually taking out small little bite-sized pieces as we're whittling to make sure we don't take out too much. And we're going for the shape of a moon or a crescent to make sure that that is very reminiscent of an actual fishtail. We're going to continue doing the feathering technique, which is taking out slivers of wood underneath each other and then going the opposite way and cutting it off. And this will help us get that slope that we were trying to get from the body to the tail. Use your bench hook as a point of leverage as you're doing the cuts if you are having to go away from you. This makes it a lot more easier and of course safer for your hands. Next, grab your ruler and mark out 1/4 of an inch on the back of the fishtail. This is where we're going to create the line so we can start making our clip. I like using a right angle square to make sure that it is flush up against the edge as I make that line. Pick up your knife again and start whittling the very back of the fish where it is flat until you reach the line. You want this to be as flat as possible so that you get the right angle. Once you reach the line, you want to double check and make sure that the bottom is still flat, because obviously we have to stand this as it will be a photo holder. You also want to check the second one and make sure that everything is as even as possible. You are doing 2 little fish, not just one. At this point, I am just making sure that all sides are even and I was able to get the shape that I was desiring. Repeat these steps until you have both sides creating your little clip. To make sure that both fish are even, you grab a little bit of tape and you're going to put them together and tape it as solidly as possible. Sometimes I tape it twice just to make sure that it doesn't move around. This way we can carve it as it is one and fix anything that's uneven about it. Now that it is securely taped, take your knife and you can now carve the middle and even out both sides of your fish. And I am always checking it as I'm carving to make sure that things are even and they look the same. So when later on, when you are having it displayed, it doesn't look funky on one side. Once you're satisfied with what you carved, it's time for sanding. Grab your little sandpaper packet. Inside of it, you're going to find a Band-Aid as well as 80 grit, 150, and 220 grit sandpaper. Sand every single piece, starting with 80 and then working your way up till 220. I like to fold over the sandpaper so I can have two sides as I am sanding. I use the very corner of the sandpaper first and my thumb is pressing down fairly hard. I always say this, sanding will really make a difference when you are making your piece and it will make it look so much more finished and it's that much more lovelier. Another fun little trick I like to do is putting the sandpaper flat on the board and then pressing down and sanding so that I can always make sure that it is flat. And this really helps, when you have something that is not, if you don't want it to be curved. I'm also brushing it off to make sure that I get all the little bits and crannies of the sanding off of it before we go on to our next step. Now, originally I was not going to show you guys how to do details for drawing on your fish and making all these little markings. I wasn't sure if you'd be into it, but my sister had this really cute fish that she got from New Orleans and I loved how it looked, so I wanted to mimic it. The first thing you're going to need is a V-tool, and I'm going to trace all the lines that I drew onto my fish. And you want to make sure when you are using this tool, your hands are never in front of it, okay? Just make sure it's safe. And you also want to be very specific about how you are carving to make sure that you go over the lines. So go very slowly and just trace the lines. I am holding the V-tool like it is a pencil so I can get the most control possible as I am carving. You want to go over each of the drawing lines at least 3 times. You want to be fairly deep and you want it to be pretty pronounced. So make sure that you have a steady hand again and you're just tracing exactly what you drew. Once you're finished with defining the lines, you're going to grab your knife and we're going to be doing something called relief carving. And it's where we're going to take out little pieces of wood up until the line that we just drew, until it makes the wood pop. So it's going to make it look a little bit more 3D, and what you are doing is essentially creating kind of like a shadow effect. The last step is to sand anything that you had to carve again, and this way that everything looks even. It is so cute, and remember, if you want to, you can also simply just do the simple one where we didn't do any details, but you can do whatever design you want. Last thing that we're going to be doing is our wood butter. So open that bad puppy up, grab a microfiber cloth, and lather up your little fish. This is such a really fun process because then we can see the grain pop. This helps condition your piece as well as make sure that it stays moisturized. If you don't, you should wood butter your spoons that you use for cooking. That's just a PSA. Hope that was helpful. Grabbing the rubber band and tying these bad boys together. Admittedly, I think your rubber bands are going to be slightly thicker, which I think will be better to make the actual clip, but as you can see, it works and it is so freaking cute. I love it so much. So put it onto the table and stick your picture or a postcard or whatever you like. Thank you so much for coming to learn how to make our little fish clip, and I hope you join us next year for Mel's Carving Club. We'll have, it was upside down. We'll have more information on how to join at the end of the year in December. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your year, and feel free to follow up or email me if you ever have any questions. It's been so much fun being able to teach all of you on how to carve, and I had a lot of fun making this one. So enjoy. Bye everyone.